Before we dive in, hi, my name is Liz Brownlee. I'm the grant coordinator for the Farmer Rancher Grant Program here in the North Central region. So I've talked with many of you, but I may not know all of you yet. So I'm glad to meet you, start putting some more faces to names. Um, so what we're gonna do today is we're gonna check in general. How we doing? We're gonna do a deep dive on reporting because you guys have reports due in January and February. Um, and if there's time at the end, we're gonna have some breakout rooms to connect because I know that that matters to you guys. The biggest thing that I want to highlight right at the outset here is I'm gonna send you this recording, I'm gonna send you these slides, and I'm gonna send you a brand new thing that we whipped up. It's a checklist for how to work through your reporting. So don't feel like you have to hurry and write every single thing down. It's gonna be coming to you. And the checklist in particular is very much meant as a way to help you just click this off your list. Betsy's going to launch a poll for us. I'm just curious to get a read of the room. How are y'all feeling about your projects?
It's nice to see we have, let's see here. Looks like we're slowing down. I think I'm gonna end it there. Oh,
Perfect.
no, we got a couple more coming in.
It's neat on our end. We can actually see them come in real time, but Betsy's going to share it here so you guys can see what everybody else is thinking too.
Here we go.
We've got all the feelings. I'm so glad that excited is the predominant one, but yeah, it's good to acknowledge, like, yeah, we also have worried and nervous and uncertain, and we have some energized and confident too. Hopefully today will help everybody feel a little more certain and confident about next steps. And anything we don't cover here today that you're like, no, Liz, I still need some one-on-one support. That is literally my job. I want you guys to reach out. We'll find a time to talk on the phone or on Zoom to cover anything that there's not time for today or that just feels too particular to your project. But I'd be willing to bet that if you're wondering about it, someone else might be too. The other little question here for you is what do you need to learn today? I've put together slides, but we can emphasize, um, you know, certain topics based on what you guys need out of today. And it'll also help me hone this presentation for future years, for future grantees. So, Betsy's going to launch that poll. And on this one, you got to pick one.
Okay, there we're at 12 again. Maybe we'll
Great.
go ahead and stop.
Thanks, Betsy.
There you go.
Cool. So a fair bit of like the big picture. What's involved in this? How do I do it? Um, and a little bit of navigating the actual site you're going to use to report. It's the same one you use for applying, but that's been a minute. Um, and I ask about reporting in on how much money you've spent in particular because a lot of people stumble on that piece. So we're going to hit that today. Super. All right. So is everybody ready? Strapped in to learn all about reporting?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's talk big picture first. That's the way my brain works. Why do we do this? Why do we make you fill out a report? Because these reports you fill out are going to be in the SARE database. They're going to be available to any other farmer or rancher. And so we want to help folks who are asking similar questions to you avoid recreating the wheel. Um, and so that's the biggest point, right? You're sharing out what worked, what didn't, how did this go? What do what do you hope others can avoid or take advantage of based on your grant funded work? It's also a chance for us as staff to see if and how we can help as your project is unfolding, to see if you're spending the money and staying up to date, if the project's on track, and then of course so we can pay you. So remember with Farmer Rancher grants, after you submit your progress report, so after year one for almost everybody, and it's approved, you get the next 35% of your funds. And for those of you on the call who are in year two, the final report, after you get that approved, you get your last 15%. So the report's important for that reason too. Um, I had I had some questions about this recently. Who should fill this out? Whoever applied for the grant in general. But if you have somebody else who's actively involved and who wants to contribute to the report and you want them to just type right into it, let me know and we can get them set up with an account so they can contribute directly. I know that's especially helpful for collaborative projects. Okay, so what's in the report? These are the sections. You can glance through them. think it's good to note that the ones with asterisks are auto-populated from your proposal. So some of this, you've already got a running start, which is nice. And we're going to talk through all these, so don't worry. Generally, these sections are asking, what did you do and how? Who participated? How much of the grant money did you spend this year? What did you learn? How did you share what you learned? And how many farmers or ranchers were involved? Um, there are lots of specific prompts. It's not like just a big text box and you can just start typing. There's loads of prompts, but um, I suspect that many of you could tell me this or most of this right now, just over a cup of tea. So I hope that that can demystify it a little bit right here at the start. Um, but let's pause for a second and think about how do we make a useful report? Something that you might actually want to read. So if you guys will type into the chat, I'd be curious to know, what do you think you'd like to see in a report? If you were reading somebody else's project, what would make it useful? What worked, what didn't, and what they would have done differently if they could start over. Yeah, mistakes made and lessons learned, suggestions to improve.
I think that's really important that things don't always go according to plan
Hmm.
and to not dismiss it. It's not a fail. That's part of why we do this is to help take the risk out of it. So we want to know what worked and didn't and how you adjusted course.
Absolutely. Thanks, Betsy.
Mhm.
Problems. Yes. Yeah, tell us what did not work. That's just as valuable as what did.
Mhm.
Nice. Well, feel free to keep typing in if you want. We're gonna talk some more about this context. I really learn best from examples. And I know that's not everybody, but I thought it might be useful to see some really excellent reports. So I've got a couple linked in here, and we'll send you this. These are three of the general types of projects we tend to see. There are some projects that don't fit any of these categories, but it might help you to see, what level of detail are people going into in their reports? How are they sharing their data? What kind of like just how do they format it? Things like that. So take a peek at a couple of those, if that's useful to your brain. And I do want to highlight that um, your project, you might be looking at a progress report this winter or a final report. Now, in the good old days, the progress report was after year one, final report was after year two. Currently, given a fair bit of uncertainty in the world, there's some folks who are speeding up their projects. And they're saying, like, I'm going to go ahead and do a progress report and a final report all at once and just get the rest of my money and be done. We feel confident about our funding. We actually just this last week got funded for the coming year, which was a big sigh of relief because it had been a long time coming. Um, but if you would rather hurry up, that's totally fine. But for the purpose of the webinar today, I'm thinking of progress reports as people who are finishing up year one of your project and final reports for finishing up year two, even though some of you might be on a slightly different timeline. So you can see the dates there. For the progress report, we're really asking for some basic information. You do have to share, lay out what you've spent in the last year. It's the final report that really asks for every single question to be answered. Um, and if in the progress report you have more to share, great, go ahead and write it out because you're not going to remember as much as you think you will in a year. But there might be some questions that you haven't gotten to that part of your project yet. You haven't done the outreach yet. You're still in data collection mode, for instance. Um, it's also a good place to say that these reports are iterative, meaning whatever you type into your progress report, when you go to write your final, that stuff's still there, and you can just add to it, edit it based on what you've learned in the last year. Um, if I've got a couple like pro tips here for getting your report kind of through the system. One thing that hangs people up is they'll submit in their mind a final report, but they don't ever say that, and it's early, and so we assume it's a progress report, and it gets kind of jumbled, and we have to trade 18 emails trying to figure out if it's actually a final or progress, and did we write the right check, and so save yourself some time. If you're submitting a final report a year early, tell us that. And we already covered this one. Okay, now let's get into the weeds a little bit. You are, um, let's see, you're reporting in on your budget. Important to know this is not public facing. So if you want to share anything out about how the money worked in your project, you have to share that in the narrative. But in terms of the budget, we as staff see that, and that's actually the first thing we look at in our review process. We kind of divvy that out to one of our coworkers who's tackling that for us. And if there's if you haven't filled out the budget part at all, that's going to slow down your report getting approved and you getting your next bunch of money. So you're going to go through line by line and tell us how much you've spent. Ideally, if it's a progress report, you've spent about half the funds, or ideally, I should have put this in, if it's a final report, you've spent every penny. Um, if you're not on track for that, talk to me before the deadline and let's figure it out. No receipts are necessary. We don't need to see receipts. You just put in the total that you spent on a given thing. It's totally normal for you to overspend on one line a little bit and underspend on another a little bit. Don't stress about that. Friendly reminder that if you have a biggish change, $1,500 or more, you need approval for that. So reach out to me. There's a very simple email I'll have you put together, and we can request that from my boss. But generally, as long as you were roughly in the neighborhood with your proposal and you're filling this out line by line, you're going to be good to go. I will say, separate from the like, are you speeding up a 2-year project into one? Let's just say like, oh, my progress report's due in January, but actually have a rainy day. I think I might just tackle this. Go ahead and do that. Because our funding didn't come through until last week, we have a major workload crunching into this winter that normally would have been spread over several more months. And so when we get all those reports at once, we can't process them all quickly because we go through and read every one and we ask follow-up questions and we want to make sure that this is a really useful document for other farmers and ranchers. So if you can submit earlier than the deadline, we'll probably be able to review your report a bit more quickly and get you your next chunk of funding a little more quickly. Or if you turned in on the deadline, that's fine too. Okay, so what do you actually write in this thing? You are going to look back at your proposal, which remember is now your plan of work. It's what was attached to your contract. And you're going to ask yourself these questions. And you're going to talk us through the answers. What were your objectives and have you reached them? What results were you planning to measure and have you collected that data? What have you learned from it? And what outreach did you plan to do? Have you done it? And how'd it go? Those are the key ones that as staff we're going to look for. Those questions are sort of implied throughout the entire report, but there's no specific place where you have to answer them. So I just thought it might be helpful for you to see them distilled down, that those questions are set on a national level by SARE overall. If I was writing the report, I might just ask these 3 questions. But this is really what we as staff are looking at, and we're kind of just double checking. So we go back to your proposal, we peek at your objectives, your results, your outreach plan. And so hopefully this will make it a little easier for you to check it, sort of include those things as you go. The other thing to note here is that if you don't answer these questions, you can pretty well count on us asking them as a follow-up email, and that's just going to slow things down. So if you can go ahead and answer them, it's that much simpler. Yeah. And by all means, well, okay, hold that thought. What if things haven't gone as planned? I've got the caveat here. Number one thing, just reach out to me if you're worried about it, because these are applied projects. So basically what we'll ask you to do is share why you had to change roughly, generally. You don't have to say if you broke your leg, but you can say like, we didn't have the labor that we thought we would. And here we had to push this back by a month. We had to change this piece of equipment we were planning to grab. And then tell us how you're adjusting. And then what if you didn't do everything that was in your plan of work? That's not entirely uncommon. I want to encourage you to do everything in your plan of work. But if there's a small piece of it that just doesn't get done, if this is the end of year 1, build it into year 2. You've still got time. We are very flexible about that timeline. If you're at the end of year 2, reach out. Let's talk about it. Um, or include it in your report, certainly. What you didn't accomplish and why and how you adapted. So sometimes a really easy example of this is somebody's planning to present at these two conferences and they didn't get in. They put in a proposal and they weren't accepted. So instead of, conference one went great, but instead of conference two, they didn't do it. But actually, at conference one, they got invited to be interviewed on a podcast. Well, that's a great outreach method too, and you can just kind of swap it in for that second conference. Um, if it's something bigger than just like one of your outreach methods, let's say, if it's something pretty substantial, like you were going to test two things and you really didn't get to the second one at all, we're going to need a little more detail about why. And that can be a really great learning opportunity. Let me know if you want to talk more. Okay, a few other topics. Big picture here before we get into the step by step. Um, I already said this, but to reiterate, if you have changes of $1,500 or more, you need prior approval. And the main thing is you have to communicate to us like, oh, I'm still pursuing my original objectives for my proposal. I just had to shift how I'm getting to them because of something I learned, or because of a piece of equipment that's no longer available, or what have you. Um, and the sooner you get in touch about that, the easier. The other thing is sometimes people need an extension. We call these a no-cost extension, which just means you get time, but no extra money. Extra time, but no extra money. You can ask for 6 or 11 months, and this is not for, hey, I didn't spend all my money. I need a little more time to spend my money. This is for the weather didn't let me proceed with my trial. The outreach event I was planning to do got moved to May, and so I need a couple extra months to do that outreach. There was a delay in some sort of thing that was being manufactured as part of my project. Um, so don't stress about this. Shoot me an email. I've got a template you can fill out to ask for it, and then it goes to my boss for review. Um, and that takes like a weekish. So no big stress there. The other kind of other topic, if you will, is about information products. The report gives you a place where you can attach or upload information products. So these are like if you made a guide or a lesson plan or instructional like how-to video. Um, these are awesome to include with your report. And whether you, no matter what they look like, they need to include SARE's logo and some very specific language from the USDA. And you can see it there in gray. Um, I've got a link built into this, or if you need it, shoot me an email. It's on our website, how exactly you need to do this, and it's got the logo and everything for you to download. The key thing for you to know is those X's you have to fill in specific to your project. Because this is so that if somebody's reading whatever you created or watching whatever you created, they know where the money for the project came from and that it was, taxpayer dollars fueling innovation on the farm and ranch. Um, so those X's are now easy for you to see. So when you sign in to see your project, the long number is the one at the very, very top, and that's specific to the year of your funding and sort of the pot of money that yours came out of. And then your project number is what's on all of your paperwork, and it's there. You can see kind of at the top. So it's going to be FNC 24 or 25 for the year, and then a specific number based on, the very first Farmer Rancher grant back in the late 80s would have been 001. We're now in the 1400s, which is exciting. Any trouble in this, you let us know. If you've put together some sort of handout for a field day or a brochure or a book or whatever it might be in between, this info needs to be in there. And we would be happy to review a draft so you can make sure like you did it right before you go printing a bunch of stuff or sharing something on your website or what have you. Okay, are we ready for instructions or should we maybe pause for questions? Why don't we pause just for a second?
Pausing is a good idea.
Thoughts, questions, fears, hopes, dreams?
Quiet bunch, maybe not.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep
Oh, we
cruising.
got one in the chat. We got a question in the chat.
I like a question. Any website associated with the project has to have this. If the grant funds paid for it in any way, if the grant funds paid for hosting or developing the website or your time to create the content, then yes. Um, I would have to ask our outreach and communications person, Marie, if it has to be there forever or if it's only sort of during the length of the project. I don't know the answer because obviously websites live for a long time. Um, I will say it doesn't have to be big. So, I could send you guys some examples, but like picture that like slightly grayed out text at the very bottom of the handout, that's in like 8-point font. That's okay. We'd love to see the logo not be minuscule, at least an inch by an inch on a printed thing, maybe 2 by 2. We're really proud of what SARE is and the work that you all are doing, so we want to be associated, but it doesn't have to be front and center by any stretch of the imagination. And we know that paragraph is so long, that definitely doesn't have to be front and center. Um, Mary, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, feel free to put other questions in the chat and let's keep cruising here. So I need to move this a little bit. Okay. So a little bit of nitty-gritty here for you. Um, you guys are going to use projects.sare.org, the same website you use to apply. Um, and I actually have like very detailed button by button instructions at the end of this slideshow. We're not going to walk through them, but they're there. So when we send you the slides, you can look at them. Right now, I'm going to just refresh you on the key things that you're going to need to navigate the system and get your report in. So when you're ready to start drafting your report, you can type directly into your project. And these are the real 6 steps. I'm also going to send you a Word document that's a template that you can use so that you can just start typing and then copy and paste. So generally speaking, you got to sign in, which is a little cumbersome. You got to work up your narrative, right? The text you want to communicate out to the world. You're going to add photos and media. You're going to update your budget. That way we can see what you've spent in the last year. And you're going to add any of those information products that we were just talking about. And then there is a special submit button. Apparently, some people get hung up on that. So make sure you don't just press save. You got to save as you go and submit at the end. So here's what it's going to look like. You're at projects.sare.org. You press login. If you've forgotten your username, which I remember as a grantee being very guilty of, because you've got 18 million things that you have usernames for, it's probably just the email that you use for SARE correspondence. So whatever I invited you to this webinar with, that's probably the one. And then there is a handy reset password button. You can always email me also, and we'll help you get in. Once you're in, you're going to have kind of a landing screen, and there's going to be this option to manage my grant proposals or manage my grants. And you're going to click on the project involved. So some people have multiple past projects. Some people only have this current one listed. Um, and then pro tip, that's going to take you to a new landing page. It's just about this grant. And at the very tip top of it, it's going to have a green link. All of our links are green in this system. It's going to say proposal. Go ahead and open that in a new tab or window so that you can look through it and make sure that as you're writing your report, you're actually referencing the objectives, the results you are planning to get, your outreach, etc. And then when you're ready to actually go into the report, you click this working version. Okay, so now you're in. What do you want to share? Minimum, especially for the progress report, minimum what you've accomplished so far. Like, oh, I've started my data collection. We've done these trials. We did our first demonstrations, right? Tell us all about it. Um, what progress you've made on each of your objectives. Just go down them one by one. And tell us a little bit. And then your plan for the coming year. Like, okay, I got through objective 1 just as planned. Objective 2 and 3 are next on the to-do list. And, the next step is buying the supplies for objective 2, right? It doesn't have to be anything fancy or drawn out, but give us the basics there. And again, these are the questions we're going to be asking in our brains as staff as we're like um, reviewing your report. If it's your final report, you cannot submit it until you've answered every single question. Um, so you're going to be building on whatever you said in your progress report. You might be making some corrections. Some people, we see them basically just put in each section above whatever they've already written year one, and then they add at the bottom or above it, one of the two, year two update. That's fine. Or you can just make it one whole narrative piece. Whatever suits your style is great. This is something new. So if you're thinking about your final report, I didn't know I was supposed to be making people do this. So this is why it's new. All along we've supposed to ask people though, convert the summary section from future tense, because it got auto-populated from your proposal, so it's future tense at the time, into past tense, showing what you actually did. And there are 4 specific things to ask for. This is actually in the reporting system. And the idea is that some farmer or rancher out there could quickly see if it's worth reading the rest of your report. So, what problem were you addressing and what solution did you pursue? What was your research approach or education approach and learning outcomes? A succinct statement of your conclusions and farmer adoption actions. Maybe a nice story, right? That's optional. This should probably be a paragraph. It's a summary. But I think that's gonna make your reports so much stronger. I'm really excited about this. Okay, and then either as you go or at the end, you can add in photos. Um, if you have youth involved, we have to have a photo permission, and the link to that permission form is there. Whatever permission form you maybe already use, let's say you do a lot with youth, and so you have a permission form, does not cut it. It has to be this very specific one that the USDA lawyers require us to use. But if it's adults, it's a non-issue. We'd love to see photos, of course. It can really help other people learn so they can visually see what you were up to. Um, or if, for instance, there's a project that just finished its final report, they had a lot of marketing materials that they developed as part of their project. They were testing out different ways to draw in new customers. And so they actually had really nice screenshots of all the different postcards and mailers and flyers and things that they developed so that other people could see the exact thing they created and, copycat as appropriate. Okay. Next thing, step 4 out of 6, update your budget. So go through your financial records related to the grant, pull out that box of receipts or that spreadsheet, and tally up what you've spent. And I'm gonna show you what that's gonna look like. And remember that we can't review your report until you've updated it. And if it's your final report, ideally at the very bottom of the budget spreadsheet, it's gonna say that grants funds remaining is 0. You're going to add information or products. That's its own section. And if you have something you're like, I don't know if this counts or not, just email us and we'll take a peek at it. I bet it's better than you're willing to give yourself credit for, and I bet it would be a great information product. And then you're going to press submit. You're going to press submit, and it's going to give you a box that's basically like, are you sure? And you're going to press submit again. Our staff will read it and either just approve it as is or ask some follow-up questions if needed, and then we can process your paperwork for your next payment. I was planning to try this just to show you a couple things live. So, can you guys now see a URL that's a web browser that's soil and plant nutrition and its effect on giant ragweed growth and proliferation?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So this is roughly what it's going to look like once you've kind of navigated into this specific grant. You've got your proposal button that you can click to see what you originally submitted. You've got your co-op agreement number. That's what you'd put in your big long grayed out paragraph on any information products. Most importantly, working version. So if we click on that, it opens up the report and we can collapse all. I think this is a nice little hack, and see all the sections and quickly navigate to whichever one we want to work on that day. if we expand them, we can see, so this is a project that's a 2025 project. He hasn't worked on his report at all. Um, but some stuff is already auto-populated. The description of the operation, the summary, which is currently, future tense, and his objectives. He's got a fair bit of detail to his objectives. That was all brought over automatically. So he could add information to any of that if he wanted to. Doot, doot, doot. He's going to click the green edit button and it's going to give you text boxes and you can start typing away. At the bottom, at the top, he might say like, oh, actually he added another 1,500 acres to his operation. He needs to change the numbers in this. One little piece that's good to know is in the bottom right corner, these text boxes, you can actually hover over that and make it bigger. It makes it a lot easier to type into. It took me months to figure that out. So you're welcome. And then you would always, always, always press save. And then it'll take you back to the basic report and you can choose what section you want to go to next. If you're working on your budget, let's take a look at the budget. So right now it looks like a spreadsheet. It would be so handy if the way this worked was that you could just type a number right here. Amount spent year one. That's not how it works. So instead, let's take a look. This is line 1, soil tests, and here's how much money he's got. If we click edit, it's going to make it into a very different looking format. And now what was a spreadsheet is a whole section, but it's still the soil tests and it's still got how much he was approved for. So if he had spent, this is where you can actually type in, if he had spent, let's say $500 so far, he would just type that right in and then he'd scroll down. If he needed to type in any notes, he could. And then you just keep scrolling to the next thing. Okay, it's SAP tests. Wow, these are super expensive. Maybe he spent all that money. He's doing all SAP tests in year one. Or maybe he spent none of the money. Go ahead and put a 0. And he could put a note. I actually just visited this project last week, so I happen to know about this. SAP tests delayed to year 2 of the project. Right? That way we're not like, oh my gosh, why hasn't he spent any money? Right? On this really big ticket item. It's very straightforward. We can see that. And then once you get in everything, you press save. I'm not going to because I don't want to mess Jacob up. But that's what you do. You go through, you use that green edit button on each of the sections. And like, let's say education and outreach activities, if this is a progress report, you might have very little to say here. You can't enter the number of fact sheets or educational tools you've made yet because you haven't done it yet, even if you're planning to. So you can actually scroll down and you can say like all outreach activities will be in year 2. That's totally fine. If this is your final report, you probably have something pretty meaty to add to this section. All right, I'm gonna leave this again. Any other questions about kind of navigating while we're in here live?
My question was that if we needed to move the budget that are things from year 1 to year 2, that's where we would move it, correct? And then this is also is where you're saying we need to use past tense when we're doing our reporting. Okay.
Yeah, and in particular, it's the summary section, which is under the first section, project information. It's the second part, summary. And right now his says, let's see, this study seeks to understand if ... Well, his in the end will say this study observed that or noticed that. We don't want to, I don't know if we want to use the word found because that would mean definitive proof maybe, but like that's where you would convert it to past tense. You don't have to convert the other sections to past tense. It's really just this summary section.
Okay. Thank you.
And sometimes people's summaries are very scientific sounding. I met Jacob last week and he has a background in science. And so he can speak this language. Sometimes they're much more just plain language, just like a conversation. So don't feel like just because we looked at this example, it needs to be, you know, any certain way. And then, yeah, on the budget, like moving it from one to the other, you don't have to, if you didn't spend it in year 1, you would just write a 0, and it would still be there for you for year 2. So for instance, like with the soil test, right now it reads 0, which means that the remaining balance is all of it. Um, and that populates automatically. It calculates that for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's where if we anticipated that we would have spent that in year 1, we just need to notate it on why we didn't spend in year 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it really could be very simple. You know, you don't feel like you're trying to that you have to like explain, but a sentence or so.
Some acknowledgement on the why and then move on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We really pride ourselves on being farmer friendly and realistic, right? Not everything goes according to plan, and that's okay. Um, and so, you know, maybe you didn't get to spend one thing this year, but that freed up some time and you worked on something else that had been for year 2, you know, or maybe the price of something changed. Like these things happen.
Say, Liz,
Yeah,
we got another question in the chat here.
ooh,
It's
thank you.
not related to budgets.
Great. Moving on.
Can a farm be involved in more than one SARE grant at a time, or do they need to complete one before applying for another?
Ooh, great question. To apply for a new, ooh, am I going to get this answer right? If you were wanting to apply as the lead applicant on another farmer rancher grant, you would need to have your progress report up to date, and approved. Um, can it be ongoing? Usually what we encounter is people who are saying like, I'm just finishing up one, I want to apply for another. If you're only a year in and you still have a fair bit of work to do, I would need to follow up and ask because I actually don't know the answer to that. If, on the other hand, you might be like a collaborator on a different SARE grant, that's totally fine. There's no rules or regs around that. And there's no like scoring related to that one way or the other. Um, Michelle, does that answer your question? Super. Yeah, we have 6 different grant programs, and you know, sometimes farmer ranchers are collaborators on some of our larger projects that are university led or led by an extension agent or nonprofit or things like that. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna switch back to the slides and see if we can't pop back in. Oh, it's time for breakout rooms. Well, let's do this. I'm gonna stop sharing. Are there other questions or thoughts? And I see Marie's logged on. Marie, you've maybe been there the whole time. You guys, Marie is our outreach and communications guru here at SARE. And so if you have questions about like, oh, I'm putting this thing together, I can't see where to put the SARE logo in, or like, I think I got the acknowledgement info in there, but I'm not sure. Would you take a peek at it? Marie's really great about that. Or if you have a presentation coming up and you need a little, you know, brainstorming session about how to do a great job with that, she has a lot of experience in that realm. Marie, did I miss anything on the communications front?
Well, I just joined, so I'm not
Oh,
sure.
okay.
You covered them with everything. I would just also mention about the resources that are available, if you didn't mention that, in terms of books and bulletins and.
So 2 thoughts on that. One, if you're starting to think like, oh, I've got a field day that I said I'd do, but well, I haven't hosted one of those in a while, or I've never done that before. There's actually a really great guide to hosting a field day that's on the SARE website that might help you plan out, you know, make sure you got everything you need. Um, and then if you are hosting a field day and you have like, there's a SARE bulletin or something like that that you wish you could give out, we could actually potentially provide those for you for free. Is that what you were getting at, Marie?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, so be in touch. You know, if you're doing a field day about something that we already have a bulletin about, we'd love to help you get the information out to people. Awesome. Thank you, Marie. I see a couple other questions. Yeah, Mary said, oh, I'm curious about this question too, thinking about a partnership grant. Yeah, you can be in a current farmer rancher as the lead and also be written into a partnership grant, for instance, as one of the farmer participants. That's totally fine. Um, Sometimes farmers are also ag educators and would be kind of the lead on a partnership grant. And Betsy is actually the one who coordinates that program, so she could chat with you more about that. Betsy's great and can provide, you know, you have a webinar about the partnership program, but also just one-on-one support. And then somebody's asking, will the youth educator grants be open this year? Kind of. In January is when we're planning to open those. So it's this sort of funding year, but it's after the first of the year. We are excited about those, but we had to shift them around a little bit because of the crunch of work this winter. And so those should be relatively similar to the past in terms of amount of funding. I will say, and I'll say this in the webinar about it when we do it for this year for all of our grants, we're highlighting that you know, we do have some new rules and regulations that we have to follow under the current administration. And so read the call for proposal carefully about what those guidelines are. We actually have a half page of text that we are required to put in there, and it really lays out some of the things you would want to look at. And if you have concerns about that, I would encourage you to just give me a call and we could chat about it. So for instance, you know, the current administration's priorities do not include climate change or DEI efforts. And if you looked at past SARE funding, you'd see that we've funded lots of things on that front in the past based on past administration's priorities. And so that's a change. And we'd be happy to talk on the phone about kind of how to navigate that. But those grants will be open and we're excited for the good work that they'll be able to do.
I was working on the breakout rooms. Did you talk about applying for more than one grant at a time for applying for multiple grants? Okay.
I think we did. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you wanna split us out? We've got 13 minutes left in the hour. My thought is just take this time to just chit chat with each other. How's your project going? What's going wrong? What's going well? What are you excited about? Or whatever would be useful. How many rooms are we gonna put them into, Betsy?
I have 3 rooms and there'll be 5, 6 people in a room, and Liz, you can bop in or not to those. So Marie, I didn't put you in one either. So I'm gonna send you in, and you can watch your at the top. I think there's like a banner. If we can send you a note, you can watch that in the room. Notes, messages that we're sending you. So I'll send you in, and you can chat with us if you have any questions.
Awesome. Here, we're gonna also stop recording, but thank you all so much for making time. Thank you for your hard work on your projects. And be in touch however we can be useful, we want to be.